I do have this thought. I want to congratulate the Mets for bringing up two pitchers, McLean and Tong, and they have pitched. Well, McLean's been great. He's pitched 3 games. Tong pitched last night, got a lot of runs, left after a couple of errors. And it reminded me that, the Yankees have done that, and they've done it this year with Cam Schlittler, who I really like and think is going to be a big-time pitcher. And if the Yankees make the playoffs, I think they're going to make the play. I think they're going to finish first, actually. But if they make the playoffs, you figure that Max Fried and Carlos Rodon will be the first 2 starters. And I wonder if Mr. Schlittler, who had just come up a few games, I wonder if he'd be the third starting pitcher. They have Jose Hill, and they have Will Warren. But I'm thinking Schlittler. He looks so good to me. I think he is so absolutely good. Now, one thing about the Yanks, give it to him, John. I've been a Yankee since I was 8. Do you think that's long enough? And I think they lead the major leagues in runs scored, and they lead the major leagues in home runs. But in the playoffs, where you face only the very best pitchers of the best teams, you have to move runners, and you have to score the runs that they give you the opportunity. The classic would be a leadoff double. Now, what do you do with it? Do you sacrifice the guy to third? Is the next guy going to be able to get him in? And I think the Yankees, to succeed in the playoffs, have to accommodate a little bit of little ball. Now, they would say, are you kidding, little ball? They have Aaron Judge, Trent Grisham, Jazz Chisholm, Cody Bellinger, Ben Rice, all who have hit more than 20 home runs. And Anthony Volpe needs one more. And then the Yankees would have 6 players hitting 20 or more home runs. But even with those statistics of how great their home run power has been, and boy, they have home run power. But when you get to the playoffs, you got to score the runs that you have a chance to score. And so I advise the Yankees, urge the Yankees, when they get there, to play a little ball. I mentioned about Tong and McLean. It's great for a team to have young guys come up and really pitch great, just like Schlitter has done for the Yanks. But the Yankees have done this before, and I wonder if Yankee fans would remember this. In 1950, they're going for the second straight pennant and World Series. And in midseason, they called up a kid from the minor leagues. This kid is so cocky that he called them up in 49 and told them, bring me up. I'm ready. I can help you win. And they didn't do it, but they waited until midseason 1950, and then they called up a native of Astoria, Edward Charles Whitey Ford. And Whitey Ford went 9-1 for them, and the Yankees won the World Series. In 1964, 14 years later, the Yankees were really battling for the pennant. They had not played well. They had to have a great September to barely win. And they had called up in midseason a right-hander named Mel Stottlemyre. And Stottlemyre not only pitched great, won a World Series game, but was designated to pitch Game 7 against Bob Gibson and the Cardinals at Sportsman's Park. The Cardinals won the game. The Yankees played that series without their number one pitcher, Whitey Ford, and the number one shortstop, Tony Gubek, and they lost in 7. But so that's kind of happened before, and when the Yankees called up Schlittler, that's what I really thought of. Today, what else do you want to do, John? Oh, yeah, I forgot this. Talk about playing little ball. Oh, this is the essence. It's my favorite little ball story. In 1949, the Yankees trailed Boston Red Sox by 2 games with 2 games to play. They were both at Yankee Stadium. On the Saturday, the Yankees fell behind 4-0. Red Sox win, that's it. But they battled back to tie and a reserve outfielder named Johnny Lindell hit a home run in the eighth, and the Yankees won that game 5-4 to set up the final game for the American League pennant in 1949. And Dan Topping, the owner, called on Casey Stengel, who was, for his stay in New York, he would live at the Essex House, which is on Central Park South and 59th. I think it's now the Essex Marriott. I think Marriott took it over. But then it was just the Essex House. And Dan Topping goes into Casey Stengel's suite. Man, he can't believe it. He sees nothing but paper littered all over the floor. He said, Casey, what is this? And he said, I couldn't sleep, and I've been making out lineups. All different lineups to oppose the great righty Ellis Kinder. So anyway, in the first inning, after the leadoff hitter makes out, Phil Rizzuto hits a hot shot right over the bag at third, and it goes down the left field line into the left field corner and kind of bangs around a little. And so Rizzuto was able to go to third with a triple. Now he's at third in the first inning of this vital game for the American League pennant. The hitter is Tommy Henrich, old reliable. And Tommy Henrich, this is what I mean by little ball. The Red Sox decided to play the infield back. They didn't want the Yankees DiMaggio's up next and Charlie Keller. They didn't want the Yankees to have a big lead or more than a run lead. And Boston had a great hitting team. They figured they'd get the run back. And so they played their infield back, and Tommy Henrich choked up. And he played, as they say, pepper with the second baseman. He choked up and hit a little ground ball to second. Well, he was thrown out, of course, but Rizzuto scored, and there was not another run in that game till the bottom of the eighth inning. Anyway, the Yankees won, I think it was 5-3, and went on for the first of their 5 straight World Championships. Pretty good, eh? Yeah. We have 2 great guests on today. I mean great. This is the beginning of the football season. So in the latter half hour, we're going to talk football with Upton Bell, the former Patriots general manager and the best scout of his time in pro football. Also the son of the great commissioner of the NFL, Bert Bell. Boy, does he have a story to tell you. In the first part, we're going to talk to the Orioles' great right-hander, Jim Palmer, a World Series hero, a Hall of Famer, and a buddy of mine for 60 years. And so he's still broadcasting for Baltimore, so he has an eye on things, so we'll talk to Jimmy. Both friends have been mine now for 60 years. Yikes. Gee, one of us is growing older. I don't obviously know which one, but, well, that's what's going on here on the Sterling Show on this Saturday afternoon, and we'll back with more in just a moment. We have some messages from the old sponsors, pay the old bills, and we'll get back here at 77 WABC on the Sterling Show this Saturday to our phones. It's time for the 77 WABC ActionCarting.com phone line, New York City's premier waste and recycling provider. Well, my first guest, the former great right-hander of the Orioles, Hall of Famer Jim Palmer. Hello, Jimmy. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good, John. And you?
Good. It's a beautiful day in New York, in the low 70s.
Beautiful day in Orange County, or actually Newport Beach, California, too.
Well, you know what? I hate to say this, but it's normally a very pretty day in Newport.
Well, other than when you get your tax bill, yes. But, I'm sure New York could probably say the same. Anyway, no, I'm glad to be talking to you, as always. Kind of miss you. I miss myself sometimes, too. But, we go back a long way. In fact, remember Tom Davis, he actually just got in the Oriole Hall of Fame. He said, if you talk to John Sterling, ask him about working for WCBM and having the first talk sports show in Baltimore back in, 63, 64, somewhere?
Yeah, it began at the end of 64. And we met when you did my show in either 65 or 66. And
that's when I came to the big leagues, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember it, you did the show with Kurt Bleffery.
who had been Rookie of the Year from, well, Red Bank, Mawa, both of them claimed him, but he was Rookie of the Year in 1965. It's kind of amazing. Kurt was really kind of just beyond the team. We had a right fielder by the name of Sam Bowens, and Sam tries to stretch a single into a double and tears his hamstring. Kurt gets to play the rest of the year, and not only is he Rookie of the Year, the next year we beat the Dodgers in 4 straight.
Yes, you did.
Kurt gets to, and you were there in Baltimore, because I still remember one of the interviews you did with team owner Jerry Hoffberger at the time. And, you go from maybe just sitting on the bench, getting to play once a week, to being Rookie of the Year and then playing on a world championship team.
Yeah, those really were. Well, anyone would think that of the past. Those were really great days. One funny story I'll give you. I was also working at Channel 13. I did a talk show there. Anyway, they wanted me to be in the clubhouse if the Orioles won. And I was there in the clubhouse, and the Orioles beat the Dodgers 4 straight. The Dodgers did not score a run in the final 3 games.
Baltimore. Well, Mo Drabowski came in Game 1 in relief of Dave McNally, struck out 11 Dodgers in 6 2/3 innings, and then the next day was going to be my first World Series game against arguably one of the great pitchers of all time, but certainly of that decade, Sandy Koufax. I was 20, he was 30, and I sat on the bench. Brooks and Frank Robinson hit home runs in the first inning off of Don Drysdale, and I'm saying, maybe we do have a chance to win this World Series, because the Dodgers had won in 65. They beat the Twins. They had beaten the Yankees in 63. I mean, they were the Dodgers. They did have great pitching. They had Maury Wills. Tommy Davis had been hurt, but he played every once in a while. They just had a nice ball club. Ron Fairley, people, Phil Reagan was the Vulture was 14-3. They had a very good ball club. And when Mo Drabowski came in and struck out 11 guys, I'm sitting on the bench. I'm going, well, I don't know if we're going to get any runs off of Koufax, but at least these guys, talking about the Dodgers hitters, they do have trouble with a high fastball. And at 20, I had really no idea what I was doing, other than I would just go out and compete, and, things happen, and I ended up, pitching my first complete game shutout. Happens to be in Game 2 of the World Series. I guess I'm still the youngest guy to do that. And that Koufax pitched great. Sandy pitched great. It was nothing going into the 5th. Willie Davis dropped 2 routine balls in center field, picked up the second one, threw it in the dugout. We got some unearned runs. I think the Dodgers made 6 errors in that ball game. And then you're right, Wally Bunker beat the Dodgers 1-0. And then McNally came back on a Frank Robinson home run and ended up beating Drysdale 1-0. So, and then you walk out of the stadium, John, and all of a sudden you're going, boy, will it ever be that easy to win a world championship? And the answer is no.
No, it really is something. One story I had, I'm in the dugout. I'm in the clubhouse to do interviews. The first guy through the door was our late buddy Brooks Robinson. And Brooks ran into my arms. I have a microphone. And he said, I don't care if I ever win another game. but, of course, he was great, and he won many more and more World Series as well. You mentioned something. I don't mean to get on this because I want to get to other things, but you mentioned this. You said I was 20 years old, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I competed. Of course, you had great stuff. And I pitched a complete game shutout. Jim, what has happened with complete games? I mean, today, would they let you pitch the 8th and 9th?
Well, I ran into, Mariano Rivera ended up hurting his Achilles in the Old Timers Day at Yankee Stadium, but I had seen him the week before in Chicago. They had a big, Star Wars enemy, autographs with 100,000 people at the convention center, just by the, whatever O'Hare Hotel airport is. I don't know what they call that convention area, but so we were there, and I told Mariano, I said, you do know, what do you have, 657 or I've stopped counting when he got over 600, but I said, you do know I would not have pitched the 9th inning if you were on my team. But back then, and when I got the Hall of Fame, I said, listen, the only reason I tried to be as good as I was because of the people sitting behind me. And the guy sitting behind me were Robin Roberts, who was my first roommate when I was with the Orioles. I was 19 when I got to the big leagues in '65. He was 38. He had 270 wins at that time. He would end up with, I think, 286. He would start 605 games in his major league career. He would have 307 complete games, over 50%. Now, and then I said, we're up at the bat dinner, and we're going to something with Gibson and Marichal and Robin and myself. And I said, how did you win 23, 24, 25 games, for 3, 4, 5 years? He said, Jim, I used to pitch in relief. So he pitched on Sunday. He pitched in the bullpen on Tuesday and then started on Thursday. So it was a different world when I got in the Hall of Fame. I said, again, the only reason I try to be as good is because of these impeccably high standards. And back in my era, it was complete games. It was ERA. It was wins. It was how long can you go? And if you were going to be, I think Kansas City had the highest innings per start last year at 5.88 in the major leagues. I think Atlanta was second. If you pitched 5.88 innings for Earl Weaver, my Hall of Fame manager, he would go, I think we're going to be sending you to AAA in Rochester. So it's a different era. I understand some of the numbers, but the problem with pitchers never throwing more than 95, 100 pitches is the fact that when you do get to the postseason and you do have bullpen guys that have, 40, 50, 60, 70 appearances, a lot of those guys don't pitch as well in October as they did in April, May, June, and July. So I think ideally, and I remember a quick story, Don Sutton, who's in the Hall of Fame, won over 300 games. Roy Hartsfield was his first manager, and he handed him the baseball in Double-A. And he says, here, you're going to pitch tonight. And then he pecks him in the shoulder, in the pec. He goes, with his finger, he goes, don't be looking in the dugout. And then he pecks him in the pectoral again, right on the right side where he's going to pitch. He goes, and he said, I'll let you know when you're tired. So it's a different era. And Don said, I didn't know if I was going to be able to pitch. He was pecking me so much on the right side of my my breasts, and so to speak. So the point is, it's if you get paid, really more for less, what are you going to do? I mean, so you have a sponsor with a car. But I'll throw out Mercedes. You sell 100 Mercedes, and then you make a lot of money because you're on commission. And the next year, the owner of the dealership says, hey, you were so good last year. I'm just going to give you what you made last year. Do you think you sell 100 cars? Just, you don't. And I think that's what pitching's come to. It's more about velocity and spin. It's not about making good pitches. They had a young kid that pitched for the Mets last night, Jonah Tong, pitched very well. I think they got him 12 or 13 runs in the first couple of innings. And they said he looks a lot like Tim Lincecum, who won a couple of Cy Youngs for the Giants. So I'm looking at a picture today, and I'm seeing Tong pitch last night, and the catcher sitting in the middle of the plate with his glove in the middle of the plate. And then I go back to Lincecum, who won back-to-back Cy Youngs for the Giants. Catcher has his whole body splitting the outside corner. That is the era that I pitched in. Now, if you watch most games, the catcher is going to put the glove right down the middle. And when you talk to pitching coach, they said, why do they do that? Don't you want to pitch on the corners? They go, because the average major league pitcher misses their target by 9 inches.
Well, you know what I find in watching all these games now that I retired, I see pitchers who don't want to throw a strike, and they don't throw a strike until they have to throw a strike.
Well, that's the Don Stanhouse theory. He would come in late inning and he goes, all hitters maybe feel, not all hitters, but most hitters feel pressure in the late innings of the game. So why throw a strike till you have to? And of course, Earl Weaver used to smoke. Don Stanhouse's nickname was Full Pack because right. Earl would go through a full pack of cigarettes. Watching him go out there and walk the bases loaded and then throw a 3-2 backup sliders to Bobby Bonds and get him out. So, he would drive us crazy, but that's I don't think it's that they don't want to throw strikes, John. I don't think that they're taught to actually make quality pitches. It's how can I throw the ball as hard as I can? How can I spin it as much as I can? And you know what? If I do that for a short period of time, I'm going to get hitters out. And then if we look at baseball in my era, guys prided themselves not striking out. Now, I mean, as good as Aaron Judge is, and fabulous guy. I know he's had some flexor problems with his right elbow, but he still struck out 146 times this year. That's 146 times that nothing's happened.
You can't believe the low strikeout totals of two guys that I'll mention, Joe DiMaggio and Yogi Berra. They just didn't strike out a lot.
Didn't Yogi get up 700 times and strike out, 18 times or something?
Yeah, something like that.
And then DiMaggio used to always walk more than he struck out.
Yes.
So, but we are talking about, we are talking about guys that were awfully good. I mean, if you look at Musial and you look at Gwynn, those guys didn't strike out, so, even some of the greatest players, Frank Robbins, I think, struck out 100 times one time, and yet you end up with 586 home runs. The thing is, again, if it's okay to strike out, then people are going to strike out.
Well, I guess it is okay to strike out. I think it's terrible. I think it's terrible when they don't move a runner. And you know what? I'm filled with old thoughts. And so,
well, it's not, but they're not old thoughts. A couple of years ago, they talked about how the home run is the most important thing when you look into the analytical world, when you look into metrics. Because if a guy hits a home run, guy's not diving for the ball in in left center or right center, not going over the wall. It's a home run. So it's an absolute number. But I told our analytical guy, I said, so if home runs are that important, and of course to do that, maybe you have to have a little bit more of a uppercut swing. Strikeouts go up when you try to do that. Oh. I said, if home runs are that important, since they started testing for steroids, which is 2005, so the next year, 2006, home runs are up and runs per game are down.
Yeah, what does that mean?
That means that home runs aren't as important maybe as sometimes as we do. How about a 2-out base hit and break a pitcher's heart? Yeah. A little looper, a little Buddy Bell over the second baseman's head, or that's what good hitters do.
Well, I think the launch angle was one of the worst things ever to happen to baseball, and so we can sit and talk about this all the time, but I don't think they're going to change. That's the way the game is played now. Jim, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And
you're welcome.
I hope it won't be the only time.
Well,
we've done this before.
Of course, and hopefully we'll, we won't even reminisce about playing basketball at the YMCA in Towson, Maryland.
Right. Well, I couldn't get into everything I wanted. So,
well, let's do it again then. Let's do it during the. The Yankees are only 3 back of Toronto, and it looks like they're going to be a wild card team if they don't win the American League East. So we'll do it during and actually the Orioles. Not that we're playing particularly well; we've lost 5 in a row, but we play the Yankees pretty well. We play them another 7 times, so I get a chance to do the Dodgers in Baltimore next weekend, and then a couple of weeks from that, the Yankees come to Baltimore, and then the Orioles. In the season in New York, so that could be a big series. So if you want to talk again, I'm always willing to do that.
I do want to talk again, and we shall. And thank you for coming on. And we're going to break and sell a few things and then get back right here at 77 WABC. We're back. This is going to be like a little Baltimore reunion, because that's where I met Jim Palmer, who you just heard on the air. Isn't he great? He can talk. And so can this guy. Upton Bell with the Baltimore Colts, was probably the best scout in the business. That's why Baltimore won all the time. Then he moved up to be general manager of the Patriots. And for the long time, he has been doing radio and television talk shows in Boston. And here is my buddy for 60 years, Upton Bell. Uppy, hello.
John, great to talk to you.
And you shall be for the next half hour, I want you to know. I want to lead this way. Upton Bell is the son of Bert Bell, who, more than anyone else, was the driving force for the National Football League. But, Uppy, you were a little boy at the time. I want you to recall the story of the Eagles-Chicago Cardinals championship game, I think, in 1940. They played 2 years in a row, but I think this was in 48.
John, fasten your seatbelts, because it is one of the most unreal stories that your audience will hear. In 1948, the championship game, and you're right, the Eagles had played the Cardinals the year before. The Cardinals beat them in Chicago. And in 48, the day of the game, in fact, I want to take you back to the day before the game because it was snowing like mad in Philadelphia, one of the worst snowstorms you've ever seen at that time. The day before the game, the Cardinals players had voted not to play in the game on Sunday. My father got wind of it, and he called them and said, "You're going to play the GD game. I just sold it to national radio, and it also was the first televised NFL championship game." So he said, "You guys are going to play that game. I don't care what the hell the story is tomorrow." Come Sunday, we're driving in, and we barely get there. And once we get there, my father sees the field and what's going on there, and they were having trouble getting the tarp off the field. In the meantime, it was so bad that the Eagles in the city were offering people who came to the game with a shovel, if they would come and help shovel the snow out of the stands, and maybe help on the field, they would get to the game for free. So here you have this kind of mass gathering of people with snow snubbles, players on both sides, and my father on the field. And actually, there was a picture that used to be in his office of the commissioner of football he didn't shovel, but helping the tarp crew and players of both teams try to roll the tarp off the field. Now, the interesting thing, I mean, there were many things that day, but the interesting thing was that the players the day before in the Cardinals that didn't want to play the game, when my father thought, this thing is so bad, I mean, it's a blizzard, that basically he was thinking about calling the game, and the players from both teams, John, said, no, we want to play the game. Now, of course, today it will be completely different, but those guys were a different breed. Anyway, they play the game in an unbelievable snowstorm,
and
the owners
and the players help shovel the snow off the field. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that happening nowadays?
And well, it's not only that; they help roll the tarp off, and there's my father in a suit and a big overcoat and a hat, and there's the commissioner of football. And as I said, I have a picture somewhere of it. There's the commissioner of football, a former quarterback at Penn, and original founder of the Philadelphia Eagles, pushing the tarp off with a ground screw. I mean, yeah, you couldn't believe what went on that day. Anyway, the other part of the story that is absolutely fascinating is their greatest running back, Hall of Famer, Steve Van Buren, woke up that morning and figured they're not going to play this damn game. So with about an hour or so before the game starts, the Eagles are in a panic. They're in the locker room, and they call his house, and they say, where the hell are you? We're playing. He said, I didn't realize it, and then he goes out to his car. His car wouldn't start. He then quickly jumped onto a subway, got a bus, and then another taxi, and got there just 5 minutes before game time. Ironically, John.
What a story.
He's the only guy that scored the winning touchdown in the fourth quarter. And I always remember the way it was set up and him breaking through, fending off a couple of tacklers and into the end zone. Now, at the end of the game, the fans carried Van Buren off the field. And you couldn't believe what was going on there. And you know what? I look at football today, and you do too, and sports. And if people say it's a cliche, I will tell you, those people played for the love of the game because they weren't making any money. I mean, you're talking about 1948. And again, I think of those guys, and I think about today, and we look at what's going on with Micah Parsons in Dallas, and we'll get to that in a little while. But, $40, $50 million. And listen, good for them. Get all the damn money you can because they never made anything in the past. But I say, do you love something like those guys did? It might sound corny to your audience, but I can tell you I was there. And you could feel the feeling before, during, and after the game. Those guys loved what they were doing. They knew they were getting screwed. They knew they weren't going to make a lot of money. But there was an instinct, I think, particularly in a football player, and you've been around all sorts of athletes doing the Yankees for years. There's something about football players, no matter how much they bitch, that once the whistle is blown, they forget all of that. But again, those people really, they were unique, and I wish that the league, they talk about it. A historian is sending me the film of that game for the Upton Bell collection at UMass Amherst. But he was saying, how did these people do that? How did they play in that type of weather? What was the feeling? I mean, again, it's talked about, but you're really highlighting it today, and thank you for giving me a chance to talk about it because...
No, I love the story. Gee, can you imagine today's players going out there and shoveling snow to get the game? Anyway, we know that was unbelievable. Well, Uppy, we don't have a whole lot of time, and I want to talk football with you, and we will... Did I read that spot that I should read? I didn't read it? Well, let me read it now, okay? Upton, you stay right there.
I'm here.
Now we're going to the 77 WABC ActionKarting.com phone line, New York City's premier waste and recycling provider. Back with Uppy in just a moment on 77 WABC. My guest is Upton Bell here at the beginning of the football season. Upton has been in football since he was, 7, 8 years old. His dad was the commissioner. Upton, this is a very general question, my goodness, but you've seen it all. Anyway, forgetting all about, did you ever imagine that football could ever be this big?
I didn't, but my father did. And it's interesting, John, because he played, I think his team, when he owned the team and was also the coach, there was a team in Brooklyn called the Brooklyn Dodgers. Yes, a football team. At that time, in 1937, I believe it was, the World's Fair wanted to televise a sporting event, so they decided that they were going to pick that game, and people have written about it. And what he saw in that game with the television through NBC, and what was done, he never forgot the power of television. And he looked far, far in advance. Two things. One, by inventing the pro football draft, which saved pro football and all of sports. But two, the use of television, which Pete Rozelle then, and now even Roger Goodell today with all the different outlets. But he saw the future of that, and he used it to sell the first national TV contract. A lot of people think it was ABC on Monday Night Football years ago, but it was Burt Bell that sold the Dumont Network, and there used to be every Saturday night the game of the week. So I think he would see how far it's gone. He saw way into the future, but I don't think he could have imagined, because nobody had any money there, John, that it would be this big. I mean, it's incredible what's going on. My fear, and we saw it a couple of days ago, what has happened to the game. Jerry Jones, Ben Boland of the Boston Globe wrote for Tomorrow in his column that 31 out of 32 general managers would have been fired if they had done what Jerry Jones did and traded Micah Parsons, who is the Lawrence Taylor of football right now, and you know how great Taylor was, to trade him to Green Bay and get essentially a defensive lineman and then 2 number 1 draft choices. And what the hell does that mean? Who knows? But this is a guy that he traded away because he didn't want to give up his ego to say, all right, I'll lead it and I'll give you $40 million a year, which sounds outlandish, but that's what the market is going. So you've traded away a guy that was the heart and soul of your defense, only 25 years old. If anybody else had done that, you'd have been immediately fired, but that's what's happened.
Yes, and that is what has happened. And Parsons was he was making $15 million, but he gambled on himself, and now he has the contract that assures that he'll be set for life. He never has to work if he doesn't want to. Again, I want you to second this story, maybe tell me more. When I got to Baltimore, Uppy, it was the beginning of, well, I started the show beginning of October in '64. And then the NFL owners got a deal from CBS. I know you'll remember it. It was land shaking. They got a deal where every team in the NFL got $1 million before the year. And I mean, those owners went crazy. They never expected that. And that meant that their program was in the black from that point on. What do you remember about that?
Well, the first and foremost, I remember Carl Rosenblum, the owner of the Colts, immediately screwed his two partners because he didn't let them know that the deal was coming down. And about a week or two before it was announced, he offered his partners like $50,000 apiece to buy them out. You know what? They looked at the Times and said, well, this league's going to be okay, but it's never going to make millions of dollars. So the two dummies sold out to him, and then a week or two later, it's announced that each team got $1 million. Now, I will tell you, John, what I said at the time that I thought was wrong with it. Bert Bell had split it up between CBS and NBC, and the reason that he did, NBC got the championship game every year, and CBS had the regular season. And what happened was CBS would constantly bitch about it and say, you know what, we want the regular season. But my father, and I heard him, because one of the great things about growing up and learning about all of this history was he had 3 telephones in the house, and I heard every conversation because my father was louder than anybody that I've ever known. So I would hear all the conversations. In fact, I thought about writing a book just on Bert Bell's conversations. And what he said was this. He said, someday another league will come in and they'll get a TV contract from either CBS or NBC. And he said, the league will be screwed. Well, just before he died in 1959, Lamar Hunt approached him about buying an NFL franchise. It never worked out, but he and my father worked out a situation where Hunt founded the AFL, and what's the first thing he did? He went to ABC, he got a contract out of them, and the rest is history. The minute that happened, you know what I said? The NFL was screwed. They're either going to have to take them in or there's going to be a big war between those two leagues.
Well, and that's exactly what happened. It took a while for the AFL to get their legs underneath them, but then, after 2 years with ABC dropped them, and they wondered, is that going to be the end of the American Football League? And NBC came up with an offer, and you can recall seeing Kurt Gowdy do the games, and, you know, the rest is history. In just a few years, or 8 years or so, the AFL and the NFL got together, and look what's happened. I mean, you know, I can't knock anything, because I watch every single game I can. You know, the only games I can't watch, Uppy, and can you imagine I can't see a Yankee game every now and then? You know why? Because the games are streaming. How dumb is that to discard so many people who are going to watch your game?
John, the two major things that I have said repeatedly when people call me that could be a real problem down the line, not now for the NFL. First of all, asking the fans now, I've got 3 television sets I'm looking at right into all 3 of them right now. I've got to get Amazon for Thursdays. I've got to get Netflix for the holidays. I've got to get this, I've got to get that, and I've got to pay for each one of these. And the fans, they're going to see more and more that less and less games are going to be on free television, and I think that's going to hurt them. For instance, the Eagles open up on Thursday on national TV, and you can get that. But then on Friday, the Packers are playing, and they're playing Kansas City is playing against San Diego. Well, not San Diego,
right,
Los Angeles. Right. And that's from Sao Paulo. And I'm saying to myself, what the hell am I going to have to pay for this? So I really see that being a real problem down the line. The second thing is that saddens me is Bert Bell saved the league in 1946 when there was a gambling scandal, and came out with it immediately, suspended one guy for life, and they then hired ex-FBI agents in each city to kind of quell all the problems that they had. Now you see every Tom, Dick, and Harry, including the NFL, they're all in bed with gambling. And I think that there will be a major scandal. We're seeing some of the things that are happening in baseball, already in football. But once something like that happens and you lose credibility, you're dead.
Well, as I say, it hurts me whenever there's a game streaming. I can't see it, and I get by. I watch other games, and then I finally get the score, and I know NFL is going to replay the game, so I'm happy about that. But, boy, telling people, no, don't watch, boy, that may be the wrong thing. Well, let's talk a little football. We have very little time left. Very exciting year coming up. See, that's the thing. The football drags you back in. How will Aaron Rodgers perform in Pittsburgh? Is this year that Josh Allen takes his Bills all the way? Things like that. What are some of your thoughts about the coming NFL season?
Well, even though the NFL will tell you that every year brings a chance for more and more teams to get in, look at it the way it really is. I see the Bills repeating, getting there, finally, maybe. I see the Kansas City Chiefs making the playoffs, but I don't think that they're the same as they were before. The usual suspects. The Eagles, to me, is still the best team in the NFC. You've got the Lions, you've got Minnesota, but the usual suspects are still there. Maybe some people will make the playoffs that you didn't think would get there. But again, this is the beauty, John, of the NFL. You watch all the games and everything else like that, but I guarantee you at the end of the season, the same people are going to be there. And that's the way they fill around it is that basically they try to sell you on the idea that this team and that team is eventually going to surprise you and make the playoffs. And I get the red zone also, and maybe some of your audience does. When I watch the red zone, I watch it not for entertainment. I watch it as somebody who used to run teams, own teams, and scouted teams. And I can tell you this, everybody in every city wants to think their teams are going to do well. I can tell, by the way, to the Giant fans and the Jet fans, don't punch your ticket for the playoffs. Far from it. But when I see that,
Well, one thing. I agree with you. But if you can't be optimistic before the season begins, you'll never be optimistic. And it's true. The Giants and Jets, because the fans want to see their teams do so well, and they never do well year after year. So that's why they're excited at the beginning of the year.
Well, I can tell you this for the Giant fans. I do like Justin Dart, the kid that they drafted. I also think the future may be Lawrence Taylor as Abdul Carter. He is a killer. That guy, I'd watch a lot of their games because I can get all the different stuff on the NFL Network. I really like him. I think the problem with the Jets is Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor doesn't get it done.
Right.
And that's a franchise. Again, you go to the different owners and you look at different situations and say, does this team ever have a chance to win? I happen to like and met Woody Johnson. I like him. But he is the major problem with what keeps happening to the Jets. Just like Jerry Jones, John, is the major problem with the Dallas Cowboys. They make billions of dollars, the Cowboys do. And everybody says, look at how Jerry's got the richest team in the league. It's $13 billion worth more than any other franchise. They haven't been to a championship game since 1995.
Well, if I was Jerry Jones, I would tell the public when they knock him, and he gets knocked, that he bought the Cowboys in '89 for $191 million. And now the Yankees and the Cowboys can jump up and down and cheer because the L.A. Lakers got sold for $10 billion. So they got $10 billion. The Yanks and Cowboys will get, let's say, north of that's a lot of money. Any thoughts about the number one pick who Tennessee took? Does he have the talent to be a number one starter? They need a quarterback badly.
I think so. But you've got to remember again, the 32 teams, he's going to have to play anyway.
Yes.
You know, a lot of places you just don't know. But I do like him. I watch a lot of his games at the University of Miami, and I do like him. But everything, John, and now is relative because teams, people have to play. I'll give you an example here with Drake May. He looks like the guy that can do it. But last year he went in, made a lot of mistakes, but people loved him. Great arm, can run, seems fairly intelligent. But now that he's into his second training camp, there are people beginning to ask questions about him. Remember the big difference today is these guys. Okay, so you said that today the big difference is that most of these guys have every play called for them coming from college. You're not used to the pros. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Upton. You'll come on again where you can enlarge on those thoughts. My thanks to Vincent Lospinando, Jonas Jackson, Elias Raff, who have been behind the glass. We're going to let him out of the glass soon. And this is John Sterling. Thanks for tuning in. See you next Saturday. It's been a pleasure.